James' chapter on property looks deeper into the extent to which youth consider the content available online as theirs, and to what extent they believe contributors of online content should be given credit, and when it was necessary to do so. The chapter overall looked at the specific examples of information on Wikipedia, the downloading of comics and video games, as well as music and movie downloading, and the view of youth about whether and how the difference of mediums might differ one's thinking of property. She sought to explore the implications of how we access, regard, and treat other people's information online, and when it was acceptable to repurpose online material in each of those categories for different contexts. As with the previous chapters thus far, James looks at the degree that moral and ethical responsibility plays in the decision-making process of deciding which online material was their property and what belonged to another and needed to be credited for. As James states on page 54, there's a line between imagination and plagiarism, which I think is a great thing to keep in mind. After all, no idea is truly our own and had to originate in some way from somewhere. The youth James talked to on the topic seemed to fall under two main beliefs. Some thought solely of the consequences of their actions, such as, I might get in trouble if I use this, while others looked at the moral and ethical effects of their decisions and thought more like, is it right to use this? She states that respect and a conscience are a more meaningful and reliable basis than consequence thinking for handling co-created content with care. For this task, we were to take someone's video on privacy and remix it for the sake of this week's video on property, connecting both topics to James's work. In a way, I looked at this task and approached it as I would a research paper. The video was my evidence, and the way I chose to use it was by understanding the main idea the person was trying to make, and then sort of making it my own, giving credit where it's due for the purpose of not claiming anyone else's ideas as my own, in addition for wishing not to get in trouble for it. This is a point and a standpoint that James I don't really think considers, as I think both are equally important. Yes, no one wants to get in trouble for any decisions that they make, but also one needs to understand that what's more important is understanding why credit should be given in the first place, and the importance of giving credit. In her video on privacy, my classmate Nicole Bruno states that James speaks on how she believes there's a false sense of privacy among youth, and how everything we do can be accessed online, stating that she personally doesn't think it's as problematic as James makes it to be. The fact that children are more worry about themselves other than others. She addresses the idea that children have the right to access information according to the UNCRC, and that it would be more concerning if they weren't as concerned about their own self-interests at all. Nicole says it's like kids these days to care more about themselves than others, but James in this chapter actually addresses this blind spot on page 71 in her conclusion when she states that it's not that kids these days are immoral or unethical, but that given the complex environments that they find themselves in, like the social, cultural, and technological ones, self-centered approaches and attitudes to the appropriation of content online just sort of make sense. In relation to this, Nicole addresses James' section on privacy as being in your own hands, and she says that it sums up how children view their own privacy as being their choice. She says that adults think their children's agency is limited, but the fact that they know how to stay private online and participate in purposeful ways, which allow them to choose what they do and what they don't post online in deliberate ways, shows that they are capable and know what to keep private. Adults, as James points out, could be why this blind spot of children's lack of moral or ethical sensitivity for property rights exist. Instead of pressuring youth about their participation online and constantly stressing the consequences of what could happen, adults should support youth to understand the ethical dimensions of property issues and the importance of giving credit where it's due just because it's a decent thing to do, regardless of whether you get in trouble or not. Conversations in the classroom surrounding copyright and property should not be focused only on the legality of the issue, and should shift less from an emphasis on punishment to a discussion of the ethical dimensions of citation. This will instill an ethical sensitivity in youth who will not only then understand how to create, respect, and draw on other people's work, but also why it is so important to do so.